This is the reading for the 23rd of August. We're down on the banks of the Forth, looking for a boat ride across. All night then we walked through the north side of the Carse under the high line of the Ochil Mountains, and by Alloa and Clackmannan and Culross, all of which we avoided. And about 10 in the morning, mighty hungry and tired, came to the little clachan of Limekilns, which is exactly where we are. This is a place that sits near in by the waterside and looks across the Hope to the town of Queensferry. So that's his reference to the Hope that the landlord was talking to us about. Smoke went up from both of these and from other villages and farms upon all hands. The fields were being reaped, 2 ships lay anchored, and boats were coming and going on the Hope. It was altogether a right pleasant sight to me, and I could not take my fill of gazing at these comfortable green cultivated hills and the busy people both of the field and the sea. For all that, there was Mr. Rankeela's house on the south shore, where I had no doubt wealth awaited me, and here was I upon the north, clad in poor enough attire of an outlandish fashion, with 3 silver shillings left to me of all my fortune, a price set upon my head, and an outlawed man for my sole company. That's not a bad setup, is it? "Oh, Alan," said I, "to think of it, over there's all that heart could want waiting for me, and the birds go over and the boats go over, all that please can go, but just me only. Oh man, but it's a heartbreak." In Limekilns we entered a small change house, which we only knew to be a public by the wand over the door, and bought some bread and cheese from a good-looking lass that was the servant. This we carried with us in a bundle, meaning to sit and eat it in a bush of wood on the seashore that we saw some third part of a mile in front. As we went, I kept looking across the water and sighing to myself, and though I took no heed of it, Alan had fallen into a muse, and at last he stopped in the way. "Did you take heed of the lass we bought this off?" says he, tapping on the bread and cheese. "To be sure," said I, "and a bonny lass she was." "Ye thought that?" cries he. "Man, David, that's good news." "In the name of all that's wonderful, why so?" says I. "What good can that do?" "Well," said Alan with one of his droll looks, "I was rather in hopes it would maybe get us that boat." "If it were the other way about, it would be liker it," said I. "That's all that you ken, you see," said Alan. "I don't want the lass to fall in love with you. I want her to be sorry for you, David. To which end there is no manner of need that she should take you for a beauty. Now let me see," looking me curiously over. "I wish you were a wee thing paler, and apart from that you'll do fine for my purpose. You have a fine hangdog, rag and tatter, clapper-maclaw kind of a look to ye, as if you'd stolen the coat from a potato bogle." That's just so good. "Come right about and back to the change house for that boat of ours." I followed him laughing. "David Balfour," said he, "you're a very funny gentleman by your way of it, and this is a very funny employ for ye, no doubt. For all that, if you have any affection for my neck, to say nothing of your own, you will perhaps be kind enough to take this matter responsibly. I am going to do a bit of play acting, the bottom ground of which is just exactly as serious as the gallows for the pair of us, so bear it if you please in mind and conduct yourself according." "Well, well," said I, "have it as you will." As we got near the clachan, he made me take his arm and hang upon it like one almost helpless with weariness, and by the time he pushed open the change house door, he seemed to be half carrying me. The maid appeared surprised, as well she might be, at our speedy return, but Alan had no words to spare for her in explanation, helped me to a chair, called for a tass of brandy, with which he fed me in little sips, and then breaking up the bread and cheese, helped me to eat it like a nursery lass. The whole with that grave, concerned, affectionate countenance that might have imposed upon a judge. It was a small wonder if the maid were taken with the picture we presented of a poor, sick, overwrought lad and his most tender comrade. She drew quite near and stood leaning with her back on the table. "What's like wrong with him?" said she at last. Alan turned upon her, to my great wonder, with a kind of fury. "Wrong!" cries he. "He's walked more hundreds of miles than he has hairs upon his chin, and slept oftener in wet heather than dry sheets." "He's young for the like of that," said the maid. "I were young," said Alan, with his back to her. "He would be better riding," says she. "And where could I get a horse to him?" cried Alan, turning on her with the same appearance of fury. "Would you have me steal?" I thought this roughness would have sent her off in dudgeon, as indeed it closed her mouth for the time, but my companion knew very well what he was doing, and for as simple as he was in some things of life, he had a great fund of roguishness in such affairs as these. "You needn't tell me," she said at last, "you're gentry." Well, said Alan, softened a little, I believe against his will, by this artless comment, and suppose we were. Did ever you hear that gentry put money in folks' pockets? She sighed at this, as if she were herself some disinherited great lady. No, says she, that's true indeed. I was all this while chafing at the part I played, and sitting tongue-tied between shame and merriment, but somehow at this I could hold in no longer, and bade Alan let me be, for I was better already. My voice stuck in my throat, for I ever hated to take part in lies, but my very embarrassment helped on the plot, for the lass no doubt set down my husky voice to sickness and fatigue. Has he nae friends? Said she in a tearful voice. That has he so, cried Alan, if we could but win to them. Friends and rich friends, beds to lie in, food to eat, doctors to see to him, and here he must tramp in the dubs and sleep in the heather like a beggar man. And why that? Says the lass. My dear, says Alan, I canna very safely say, but I'll tell you what I'll do instead, says he. I'll whistle ye a bit of tune. And with that he leaned pretty far over the table, and in a mere breath of a whistle, but with a wonderful pretty sentiment, gave her a few bars of Charlie is my darling. Whisht, says she, and looked over her shoulder to the door. That's it, said Alan. And him so young, cries the lass. He's old enough to... And Alan stuck his forefinger on the back part of his neck, meaning that I was old enough to lose my head. It would be a black shame, she cried, flushing high. It's what will be, though, said Alan, unless we manage the better. At this the lass turned and ran out of that part of the house, leaving us alone together, Alan in high good humour at the furthering of his schemes, and I in bitter dudgeon at being called a Jacobite and treated like a child. Alan, I cried, I can stand no more of this. You'll have to sit it then, David, said he, for if you upset the pot now, you may scrape your own life out of the fire. But Alan Breck is a dead man.